Have you ever stared at your phone at night and wondered, how can someone who once held you so close now act like you never existed? How can they just disappear? No long message, no deep explanation, just silence. And the silence is loud. It makes you question everything. Was it real? Did they ever care? Was I just convenient? When you deal with an avoidant, the ending feels different. It feels colder, almost surgical. One day you are sharing dreams. The next day they are distant, calm, unbothered, as if nothing cracked inside them. And that is what hurts the most. Not the breakup, but how easy they make it look. You replay the memories in your head, the laughs, the late night talks, the way they used to look at you. And now, it feels like you imagined all of it. But here's what most people don't understand. Avoidants don't react the way you react. They are wired for survival, not expression. Their nervous system learned a long time ago that closeness is dangerous, that needing someone is risky, that deep attachment means loss of control. So when love becomes intense, when emotions get deep, when vulnerability starts knocking, something inside them panics, not because you were too much, but because intimacy feels like losing power. When things end, you feel the pain immediately. Your body feels the withdrawal. Your heart feels the absence. Your mind feels the shock. But the avoidant, they feel relief first. Relief from intensity, relief from emotional pressure, relief from vulnerability. And when you see that relief, it feels like rejection. It feels like you meant nothing. It feels like they walked away untouched. But what you are seeing is not strength. It is defense. Psychology tells us something powerful about emotional suppression. When someone has trained themselves to shut down feelings, their brain protects them by delaying pain. The body goes into protective mode. It numbs, it distracts, it detaches. It looks like they moved on. But numb is not healed. Silence is not peace. Distance is not indifference. Right now, you might be in the hardest phase, the phase where you are hurting and they look fine, the phase where you are questioning your value and they are posting like nothing happened, the phase where you are fighting the urge to reach out because you want proof that you mattered. And that urge is human. Your brain craves closure. It craves reassurance. It wants certainty. That is how attachment works. When we bond, our nervous system connects safety to that person. Losing them feels like losing oxygen. But here is the truth that most people are too afraid to say. The avoidant is not free. They are distracted. There is a difference. Distraction can look like strength. They stay busy. They focus on work. They surround themselves with noise. They might even jump into something new, anything that keeps them from sitting still, because stillness is dangerous for someone who avoids emotions. Stillness forces reflection. Reflection awakens feeling. Feeling threatens control, and control is everything to them. You see, avoidants are masters at convincing themselves they are okay. They build a story in their head. It wasn't right. It was too much. I need space. And for a while, that story feels real. But the body remembers connection. The mind can deny. The ego can justify. But attachment leaves an imprint. And imprints don't disappear overnight. Right now, you may think they forgot you, but human psychology says otherwise. When someone suppresses emotion, it does not vanish. It goes underground. It waits. It builds pressure. And pressure always finds a way out. You are in the phase where it feels unfair, where you feel exposed and they look untouched, where you are doing the emotional work and they seem carefree. But this phase is temporary. Silence can fool you. It can make you believe the story your fear is telling, that you were replaceable, that you were not enough, that your love did not leave a mark. But connection always leaves a mark. And here is what you need to understand deeply. The avoidance silence is not proof that you were insignificant. It is proof that they are running from discomfort, running from vulnerability, running from the depth that you brought into their life. You challenged them. You opened doors inside them they were not ready to walk through. You made them feel things they could not control. And for someone who survives through control, that is terrifying. So they retreat. And when they retreat, it looks like you lost. But you didn't. You are just ahead in the emotional timeline. You are feeling it now. They will feel it later. And if you stay until the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly when that shift happens. You will see the psychological moment when the avoidant finally breaks, when the silence becomes heavy, when the distraction stops working, when missing you is no longer avoidable, because the story does not end in silence, it evolves in it. Right now, the quiet is not the conclusion, it is the setup. That quiet phase you are in right now, it has a psychological reason, and once you understand it, you stop blaming yourself. When the relationship ends, your system goes into alarm. You feel the shock, the loss, the craving. Your body reacts like it lost something essential. That is because attachment activates the same areas of the brain as physical survival. Love is not just emotion. It is chemistry. It is wiring. But an avoidance wiring works differently. From a young age, many avoidants learned one lesson. Depending on others leads to pain. So they trained themselves to rely only on themselves. Independence became their shield. Emotional distance became their protection. So when intimacy grows deep, their nervous system does not interpret it as safety. It interprets it as threat. Closeness feels like exposure. Exposure feels like risk. Risk feels like danger. When the bond becomes intense, their body prepares to escape. That is why, when things fall apart, their first reaction is not heartbreak. It is a strange sense of lightness. The pressure is gone. The emotional demands are gone. They feel like they can breathe again. To you, that looks heartless. But inside their brain, it is survival mode switching on. Psychology calls this deactivation. It is a defense strategy. The mind minimizes the importance of the relationship to reduce emotional discomfort. They focus on flaws. They highlight conflicts. They convince themselves it was not that meaningful. This is not cruelty. It is protection. They are not asking, how much did I lose? They are asking, how do I stay safe? That difference changes everything. While you are processing grief, they are building walls. While you are reflecting on memories, they are telling themselves stories that make separation easier. The ego steps in. It whispers, you're better off. It whispers, you don't need anyone. It whispers, stay strong. But what the ego calls strength is often avoidance. The human mind can delay emotion, but it cannot erase it. When someone suppresses feeling, the brain stores it instead of solving it. It becomes unfinished business. Think about how stress works. If you ignore it, your body still carries it. It shows up later as tension, anxiety, restlessness. The same happens with attachment. When love is pushed down, it does not disappear. It waits for space. And in the beginning, they create no space. They fill their schedule, they keep moving, they distract themselves with goals, friends, noise, attention. Movement feels powerful, silence feels dangerous, because in silence, truth rises. You might be asking yourself, if I mattered, why don't they show it? Here is the answer rooted in psychology. Showing emotion requires vulnerability. Vulnerability requires trust, and trust requires feeling safe. Avoidants struggle with that sequence. To admit they miss you would mean admitting they depended on you, and dependence clashes with the identity they built for years. They pride themselves on being self-sufficient. They believe needing someone equals weakness, so they resist that awareness. The mind can create temporary relief by focusing outward. New experiences, new conversations, new excitement. Dopamine can cover sadness for a while. Novelty feels stimulating. It gives the illusion of progress, but dopamine fades. And when stimulation lowers, the brain returns to what was never processed. That is when cracks begin to form. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. A memory surfaces unexpectedly. A habit reminds them of you. A place feels different without your presence. A conversation with someone else lacks the depth they once had. These moments are small, but they accumulate. The nervous system cannot stay in escape mode forever. Eventually, the body seeks emotional balance, and balance requires acknowledgement. You must understand this deeply. The delay is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their coping style. Attachment theory explains that avoidants disconnect to manage anxiety. They create emotional distance to regulate their internal world. In the short term, it works. They feel composed, stable, in control. But long-term suppression has a cost. Unprocessed emotion does not fade. It transforms. It becomes restlessness. It becomes subtle emptiness. It becomes a quiet sense that something meaningful is missing. And when that awareness begins, it is confusing for them. Because now the narrative they built starts to shake. They told themselves it was not that serious. They told themselves they were fine. They told themselves they did not need it. But the body does not lie. Connection creates imprint through repetition, shared vulnerability, emotional exchange. Those experiences form neural pathways. You cannot simply delete them by deciding to move on. Time does something powerful. It removes intensity. It reduces conflict. It softens negative memories. The mind starts remembering warmth more than tension. The protective story weakens. And as that happens, the feeling they postponed begins to surface, slowly at first, then stronger. You are in pain now because you are processing in real time. They appear calm because they postponed theirs. But postponed emotion always demands payment. That is the reality of human psychology. No one escapes attachment without consequence. Some feel it immediately, others feel it when distractions no longer work, and when that delayed wave finally arrives, it does not ask for permission. It just hits, and when that delayed wave finally arrives, it does not knock gently. It comes when the noise fades, when the busy days slow down, when the nights grow longer, when there is nothing left to distract the mind. At first, it feels like a small crack in their control, a random thought, a memory that lingers a little too long, your name appearing in their head without warning. They try to shake it off. They tell themselves it means nothing, but the thought returns, because what was once shared was not shallow. It was layered. It was built through repetition, presence, emotional exchange. The brain stores that kind of connection deeply. It becomes familiar, and familiarity creates comfort. Now something important happens. They start comparing, not consciously at first, but automatically. The way you listened, the way you understood subtle moods, the way you stayed consistent. Other interactions feel different, lighter, less meaningful. Something is missing, even if they cannot name it yet. The ego tries to fight back. It wasn't that special. You can find that anywhere. You don't need to think about this, but reality is stronger than ego when time removes emotion from the breakup. Distance changes perspective. Without daily contact, they no longer focus on small conflicts or pressure. The mind starts highlighting safety instead of tension. The warmth becomes clearer than the disagreements. This is when discomfort grows. They realize something unsettling. You were not just another person. You represented stability, emotional grounding, a mirror that reflected parts of them they rarely show, and now that mirror is gone. Avoidants often do not miss loudly. They do not post about it. They do not confess easily. Their struggle happens internally. It shows up in quiet moments, in restless sleep, in sudden silence during the day when everything feels paused. There is a shift from relief to emptiness. Relief was about space. Emptiness is about absence. And absence has weight. It sits on the chest. It creates a hollow feeling. It makes ordinary days feel slightly dull. Nothing dramatic, just different. This is the moment their structure begins to weaken. They start questioning the story they told themselves. If it was not important, why does it still appear in their mind? If they truly moved on, why does a simple reminder change their mood? The brain dislikes inconsistency. When thoughts and feelings do not match the narrative, tension builds. That tension pushes for clarity. They may check your social media, not out of weakness, but curiosity. They may wonder how you are doing, whether you are okay, whether you think about them too. Curiosity turns into awareness. Awareness turns into longing. Longing is unfamiliar territory for someone who avoids dependence. It feels uncomfortable. It challenges their identity because missing someone means admitting emotional attachment, and attachment requires humility. Now they feel something they tried to escape in the beginning, vulnerability without control. There is no immediate way to fix it, no quick distraction that fully removes it. It keeps returning in waves. They begin to replay moments differently, not through the lens of defense, but through reflection. They remember your patience, your effort, your presence during their difficult days. They realize you were steady when they were uncertain. This realization does not come with pride. It comes with regret. Regret is powerful. It forces self-examination. It whispers, what if you let something valuable go? That question is heavy. It shakes confidence. And here is the turning point. When the internal pressure becomes stronger than the fear of closeness, something breaks. Not in anger, not in drama, but in truth. They accept that you mattered more than they admitted. They recognize that running did not erase the bond. They understand that space did not eliminate feeling. That is when missing you becomes real, not as a passing thought, but as an emotional presence. They may resist reaching out, pride can still stand in the way, but inside the wall is cracked. The illusion of complete detachment no longer holds. Human psychology is clear about one thing: what we suppress gains strength in silence. When you avoid emotion, it grows underground. And when it surfaces, it demands acknowledgement. Now they sit with what they once escaped. And for the first time, they feel the full weight of what is gone. This is not about revenge. It is not about proving a point. It is about understanding timing. Some people process in the moment, others process in delay. But no one bypasses emotional consequence forever. While you were healing, they were postponing. Now the postponed has arrived, and it feels heavier because it accumulated over time. This is the stage where they finally understand your absence, not intellectually, emotionally. And emotional understanding is the strongest kind, because once someone truly feels loss, it cannot be unseen. It stays, it shifts them, it humbles them, and it marks the moment when the avoidant finally breaks. And when that inner collapse happens, something else becomes clear. This was never about making them crumble. It was about you rising, because while they were wrestling with delayed emotion, you were walking through fire in real time. You faced the ache, you sat with uncertainty, you questioned yourself, you doubted your worth, and yet you are still here. That matters. Pain, when faced directly, builds strength. It reshapes identity, it forces growth. Every night you chose not to beg, every day you chose not to chase. Every moment you resisted sending that message that would shrink your dignity, you were building something powerful inside yourself. Self-respect. Most people do not realize this, but emotional restraint is strength. The ability to feel deeply and still hold your ground is rare. It means you are not ruled by impulse. It means you are not controlled by fear of abandonment. And that is attractive on a psychological level. When someone who once had access to you senses that you are no longer reaching, no longer explaining, no longer trying to prove your value, it shifts the dynamic completely. Human beings are wired to notice changes in availability. When access is removed, the brain reevaluates importance. Scarcity creates awareness. Not because you are playing games, but because you stopped overextending yourself. You stopped pouring energy into someone who could not meet you at the same depth. You stopped shrinking to fit into their comfort zone. You stopped trying to convince someone to choose you. That decision transforms you. There is something powerful about calm detachment. Not coldness, not bitterness, but quiet confidence, the kind that says, I offered something real. If you could not hold it, that is your lesson. When you shift your focus back to your own growth, something magnetic happens. You reclaim attention that was scattered. You rebuild routines. You strengthen friendships. You invest in your body, your goals, your mindset. You become centered, and centered energy feels different. Even if they never admit it, they sense the shift. Energy changes are noticeable. When you are no longer emotionally chasing, the pressure disappears. What remains is clarity, and clarity is powerful. Now the situation is no longer about loss. It becomes about standards, about what you will accept, about how you expect to be treated. When you raise your internal standards, you raise your external results. Here is the truth that many struggle to accept. Your value does not decrease because someone failed to recognize it. Diamonds do not lose worth because someone walks past them without looking. You were not too much. You were simply aligned with depth. If they could not meet that depth, that reflects their capacity, not your quality. And when you truly understand this, your energy shifts from seeking validation to embodying confidence. That shift is visible. It shows in your posture, in your tone, in your silence. Silence used to feel like rejection. Now it feels like power, because now you are not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself. Psychology shows that people are drawn to those who display emotional stability. When someone remains grounded after disappointment, it signals strength. It communicates that their identity is not dependent on external approval. That is rare, and rare things are valued. Whether they return or not becomes secondary. The real victory is internal. You no longer need their realization to feel complete. You no longer depend on their regret to validate your importance. If they come back, it is because they finally saw clearly. If they stay away, it is because they are not ready for what you represent. Either way, you win, because growth cannot be taken from you. When you reflect on everything, you will see that this experience shaped you. It taught you about boundaries, about attachment styles, about the difference between love and fear. It forced you to develop emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is power in relationships. You now understand that chasing someone who fears closeness only deepens the gap. You understand that secure love does not require convincing. You understand that consistency matters more than intensity. These lessons are not small, they are foundation. So if they reach out after finally facing their own emotions, you will meet them differently, not from desperation, not from insecurity, but from strength. And if they do not, you will still walk forward with wisdom, because the greatest transformation did not happen inside them, it happened inside you. They may have broken under the weight of what they postponed, but you rebuilt under the weight of what you endured. That difference changes everything. In the end, the real reward was never their realization. It was your evolution. And once you evolve, you do not go backward. You move forward with clarity, with dignity, with calm confidence. And that is something no one can take away.